Today I'm using OpenAI's ChatGPT to find out what it thinks of places I've visited. And today we're going to look at the best and worst things about Krakow and see if I agree. Let's start with the best things about Krakow. Number one, the history and architecture. Krakow has a rich history dating back over 1,000 years, and the city is home to some of the most beautiful and well-preserved medieval architecture in Europe. I can only agree with that. This is one thing I love about going to Krakow. It's the buildings, the age of the buildings. It's the architecture that you see that I don't necessarily think you see in any other part of Europe. You go from absolute, almost war-torn buildings that are still standing and they're preserved in that way to sort of modern architecture from the medieval, the Baroque. You know, it's incredible all the different types of architecture that you see that have come through history. And it is absolutely stunning. So I have to agree, one of the best things is the history and architecture of this amazing place. Number two, the cultural heritage. Krakow is a hub of Polish culture, and the city is home to many museums, galleries, and cultural institutions. The city also hosts many festivals and events throughout the year. Now, I've not necessarily been there for many festivals. I've been there for World Youth Day when the Pope was in town. That was in 2016. It was mental. But I know it definitely has so many museums and galleries and cultural institutions because it's got that history to show off. And, you know, Krakow is such, I think, an important place for Poland and Europe that it's got to show its history. And I definitely think Krakow does that. And there are plenty of museums and galleries for you to go to when you visit. Number three, affordable cost of living. Compared to other European cities, Krakow has a relatively low cost of living, which makes it an attractive destination for students and expats. Interesting that it's got students and expats. Okay, for everyone, surely. Now, I certainly agree again that the cost of living, but it's sort of a downfall as well. So I will get to that. The cost of living, Poland in general, is pretty cheap. However, I've been visiting for 12 years now, and it was certainly cheaper before. Things are getting more expensive, and it's a sign that Krakow economically is catching up with other places like the UK, for example. Prices are going up, and that's a good thing, but also a bad thing. So, you know, the thing with when places are cheap, it normally means that you don't earn much. So now, hopefully, wages are going up to match the rising costs, but it is still, in general, a relatively affordable place to live, an affordable place to visit. If you look at other places like, for example, Prague, you know, you are going to get a much cheaper and amazing experience going to Krakow than you would cheaper wise than Prague, because somewhere like Prague, you know, is expensive. You're still getting the affordable cost of living in Poland. It just depends if the wages are matching it. Number four, beautiful parks and green spaces. Krakow has many beautiful parks and green spaces, including Planty Park, which encircles the old town. Yeah, that is funny but I wouldn't necessarily see it as much of a park, but all around the old town, you have the park which surrounds it. But if you go, for example, into the Jewish quarter, there's plenty of little play parks and gardens. And if you go further out, there's even more. So I do think in a city that is quite built up, there are still plenty of locations where you can just relax, the kids can play, without necessarily venturing out too far. So yes, I agree. Is it one of the best things? I don't know. Maybe there could be more. Now on to the worst things. Crowds and tourists. As one of the most popular tourist destinations in Poland, Krakow can be overcrowded during peak tourist seasons, which can make it difficult to fully enjoy the city. Now, if you know me, I really don't like places like London because it is so busy. It's just, I don't want to be overcrowded. I want to be able to walk around freely, see what I want when I want. And when places are too overcrowded, it makes it difficult. Now, I've been 4 times. The 3 times, well, twice has been in January, once has been in April, so it's really cold and, it's not ridiculously busy, and it was, it's ideal. The one time I went in summer, it was World Youth Day. I've never seen so many people in one place. So many young people all there for the Pope. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. So maybe I can say I've experienced a peak time then, but it's not that often. However, I bet when it gets a bit warmer, or during seasonal times, I certainly think, yes, it probably can get really busy because all the side streets and things are quite narrow. So you put a lot of people in there and you're going to struggle to get through for sure. So I do think that's probably correct. It can get quite overcrowded. Number 2, poor air quality. Krakow has some of the worst air pollution in Europe, especially during the winter months when coal is burned for heating. Now, thinking about it, this recent trip, if you haven't seen it, go to charlieandrob.com or on our YouTube channel and you can see. But we flew into Katowice and drove down to Krakow, and you do see the power stations for sure. And yes, we've gone when it's very cold, and so if that's when the power stations fire up, then I can only sort of agree because it makes sense. You need more power in the winter to heat the radiators and get the gas going, and but it's not something I've necessarily noticed from breathing in. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. You let me know in the comments. Number 3, high levels of traffic. Krakow's narrow, windy streets can be congested with traffic, which can make it difficult to get around the city. Now, once again, yes, we normally get an Uber because it's quite cheap to get an Uber from one location to another, but I've never really experienced awful traffic. I did experience bad traffic getting from Katowice airport to Krakow because, like it does say, streets are quite narrow, they're quite windy, and that can be a bit of a pain, but it wasn't anything too bad. So I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. It may be simply the time of year that I visited, but I've never actually had a problem with the traffic levels in Krakow. And the last one, number 4, cold winters. Krakow experiences cold winters with temperatures often dropping below freezing, which can be challenging for those who are not used to the cold weather. Yes, as I said, I've been twice in January and once in April when it snowed. Oh my God, it was cold. My experience, for example, of Auschwitz and Birkenau, the reason why for me I found it so sad wasn't the mounds of shoes and things like that in the cabinets. It wasn't the gas chambers. Although it's awful, the worst thing was when we were walking around, how cold we were, and myself and Charlie were wrapped up, with our big coats, and we were still so cold. And to think back then, when the people in the camps, they basically had pajamas on, how they survived even that is incredible. And that almost brought me to tears. So to think of how cold the winters are, yes, the winters are so cold. It's fine if you're used to it. It's fine if you know what to expect because you can wrap up, and then you get into a really hot building and it's like, oh no, I've got to take all these layers off. But yeah, it is really, really tough because Krakow has proper cold winters. Well, what do you think of this list? Do you agree with the pros and the cons, the best and worst? Let me know down in the comments. Is there anything you think, actually, no, that's one of the good things. No, or that's that thing in the best section, that's definitely awful. Let me know, and make sure you visit charlieandrob.com to see all of our vlog adventures. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.